friends, today we're going to start Unit 4, which is all about ratios and proportions. We're just going to start with some vocab and kind of working on defining those words before we get started. So let's go. So make sure that you have your Unit 4 packet in front of you. That way you can write down. Remember, you should be writing what I am writing on the screen. And we'll just get started. Okay, so make sure you're on 4.1, which is ratios and proportions vocabulary. Oops, forgot to change that. Okay. So by the end of this page, we are going to be able to define ratios, vocabulary. It's been a minute since I've used this pen. Okay. I'm going to scoot you closer. Whoop, there we go. So, a ratio, okay? It's a comparison of two quantities. I'm going to make it a little bigger. So I'm comparing two values, right? So we write it as A to B. We can also write it with a colon, A colon B. We read that as A to B. It can also be as a fraction, A over B, right? And so sometimes, like in school, we want a 1-to-1 ratio of students to technology, right? So like a 1-to-1 school is what we're called, because every student has one computer. So one student for one computer. The ratio is 1-to-1. That's kind of where that word comes from, if you've ever heard that before. So a rate is a ratio using different units. So the ratio is just kind of the number part. A rate, make sure that we include units. Okay, so if you read, scooch this over a little bit, 3 books every 2 weeks. The ratio would be 3 books. Come on, pen, work with me here. There we go. 2 weeks. I'll work on my handwriting. It's been a minute since I've written on this thing. Okay? So, the ratio is 3-to-2, but the rate is 3 books for every 2 weeks. So there's kind of like a timeline, a comparison going forward. Okay? So that's a rate, but a unit rate is a rate I need to write a little smaller. That compares a quantity of 1 unit to another. So when you have a unit rate, you want one of those things to have just one, right? So like a unit rate would be like 65 miles in 1 hour, right? So that 1 hour makes it a unit rate. Okay, proportional. What does it mean for things to be proportional or just a proportion? We'll just say a proportion. So scratch out the AL. Okay, so a proportion is an equation stating, let's just say, is an equation that says, how about that? Two ratios are equivalent. So they're equal, right? An equation says that things are equal. How did I bring this to the front? There we go. Now my face is in front. Okay, so it says this ratio equals this ratio. They describe the same thing. Okay, so if we had 12 over 16, we know that if I reduce this by 4, it equals 3/4. So 12/16 and 3/4 have the same value. So those would be proportional. They're changing by the same amount. Okay. Ooh. So the origin is when we're graphing on a coordinate plane. So when it has the little cross and it has the plus, it's the point 0, 0. Where the x and y axes intersect. Okay, so remember when we're graphing, the y-axis goes up and down, right? Like a yo-yo, y-axis, okay? The x-axis goes side to side. I'll draw it a little smaller. So here's our y-axis. Here's our x-axis. And the origin is right where they make the plus, where they meet. So right there. Oops, I missed. So that is the origin right there. So right where they meet. It's called the origin. Okay, we are almost there. So our last two words. So a scale, like, think of like a scale drawing or a scale model, or like a scale model of a car. It's basically just a condensed version, looks the exact same as a regular sized car, but let's say is like 1/100th of the size, right? Like if you blew it up, it'd be the exact same size. If you made it little, just kind of shrinks it, right? So it's a ratio that compares the measurement of a drawing or a model with the actual measurement. So that compares the measurement. Goodness gracious, pen. Get it together, man. There we go. Just not like when I write E's. Of a drawing or model to the actual measurement. Wrote one good E. Okay. So if you think of like a scale on a map, right? A map of the United States is just a picture, but it kind of has a scale, right? It's the exact same proportions as the US, but we can't print a whole picture that's the exact size of the US. That's crazy, okay? So what you might see on there is that, let's say you had the measurement of a 1/2 inch on the map might equal 5 miles in real life. Okay, so that would be a scale. So for every 1/2 inch you measure on the map, that's equal to 5 miles in real life. So like if two cities were 2 inches apart, that would be really 20 miles apart between them in real life, okay? So this one would be the scale, or the drawing, I guess. And the 5 miles would be the actual measurement. That way we can kind of get an idea of how far things are from each other without actually having to go measure 5 miles. That's silly. Okay? All right, our last word is the value of a ratio. So we have a ratio that's comparing two quantities, like 5 teachers for every 30 students, okay? It describes the multiplicative, basically multiplying relationship between the quantities in a ratio. Okay, so if I have the ratio let's do 1 dog to 2 cats, the value is going to be 1/2. There's half as many dogs as there are cats. Alright, so that's all our vocab for the day. Nice work. Just do your best to write it down. I know I kind of wrote messy, but good work today.